Well, good morning to you all, and thank you for joining. My name is James Thompson from Buybox Experts. Today, I'm joined by two colleagues, Dan Vermeulen, who is also from Buybox Experts. Dan heads up our DSP practice, and Nick Weinhammer from the company Kenshu, one of our business partners. Today, we want to talk with you about how to convert your Amazon customers, shoppers, into your customers. It sounds pretty wonderful, and it turns out that some recent developments within Amazon, it's becoming easier and easier to do this kind of exercise. And so we're going to talk through some of the specifics of what it takes to be in a position that you can benefit from some of the work that your competitors have done to create awareness, and how do you manage to take those customers and convert them into your own. So let's do a quick intro here. I want to talk just momentarily. Buybox Experts, for those of you who have not had exposure to this company before, we are a marketing agency that works with brands that are selling on the Amazon channel. We work with companies doing both first party and third party, the standard Amazon advertising and listing optimization work, but we also do a lot of advisory work with brand teams that are trying to figure out what their Amazon channel strategies look like and how it fits in with all the other channel strategies that they have. A number of us are ex-Amazon. We believe that that's useful for not only maintaining relationships within Amazon, but also staying relevant on all the key developments that happen ever so quickly within this Amazon framework. So let me turn things over here. Just again, quickly, my two colleagues who are joining me today, Dan Vermeulen from Buybox Experts and Nick Weinhammer from Kenshu. Gentlemen, did you want to say hello, please, and then introduce yourselves?
I can go ahead, James. Hi, everyone. I guess I'm in the middle there. I don't know if that's second or first to go, but good to be on the call with everyone today. And James, thank you for including me, and Dave. I'm a big fan of Buybox Experts. Full disclosure, I used to work with James at Buybox Experts on the advertising front. So very excited to have the conversation today and dig in on some of that history, and also the perspective that we see at Kenshu as a technology provider for Amazon advertising and other large retailers. So appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Nick. And Dave?
Yep. Good morning, everybody. My name is Dave Vermeulen, and actually I've been working in the DSP space off Amazon for the last 10 years, up until about a year and a half ago when I joined with the company and helped them build out their DSP department. And then Buybox Experts acquired that department, or that company that I was working for. And so I've helped to really build the DSP department within Buybox Experts as well.
Fantastic. Thank you, gentlemen. So let's talk about the types of marketing problems that we want to help you solve today. And there are a number of aspects about brands selling on Amazon that create unusual challenges. It turns out we can solve a lot of those challenges today through some of the new developments within Amazon. So let's talk about what are those key marketing issues that we're looking to solve. Amazon doesn't share customer information or let us set retargeting pixels. And so how do you figure out who these customers are? How do you figure out what they're doing? Is there a way to be able to, in some way, engage with them while still being terms of service compliant within Amazon? How do we create a closer relationship with the customer on Amazon? We have a situation today where, if you wait 6 months, the competitors you're facing today, there'll be even more in 6 months from now. Everybody and anybody under the sun is starting to sell on Amazon. And so how do you figure out, as a national brand or a digitally native brand, how do you find a space for yourself that you can protect and continue to grow at least as fast as the competition, when, as an open marketplace, everybody and anybody is welcome to participate? We have a situation where there are so many different companies competing against you, including companies that you may never have heard of or you may never have encountered anywhere other than on Amazon. Many of those companies are very good at understanding the Amazon sandbox. Is there anything that we can do specifically to go after the hard work that our competitors have done, either by creating, these companies have created a lot of traffic to Amazon but haven't necessarily converted them, or these companies have done a lot to create higher awareness among Amazon customers that certain categories are now flush with selection. What can we do, whether we're a small company trying to make it big on Amazon, or we're already a big company, but we're looking to take advantage of some of the mistakes that our competitors are making on Amazon? How do we leverage competitor traffic today that is highly relevant to our ability to sell products of our own? Questions around the quality of the data, the types of data that Amazon makes available through its marketing platform. Are there things that we can do to enhance the quality of the data that we might otherwise be getting today through Amazon? How do we create more relevant data, or how do we use data in more creative ways to be able to target more effectively and hence end up with a better return on investment from our advertising dollars? And then finally, for those companies that are also spending significant ad dollars on other platforms like Google and Facebook, how do you make sure that you can deal with some of the gaps in reporting that these other platforms have? How do we leverage Amazon that doesn't historically share data? Are there ways that we can use Amazon in more productive ways to counter some of the data gaps that some of these other channels, other advertising platforms may have? These are some very, very broad issues. And as we think about all the marketing dollars that brands are spending to drive traffic and to ultimately drive new sales, some of the stuff that Amazon's doing right now gives it an advantage over every other ad platform. And we want to talk about some of those issues today. And so I'm going to turn things over to my colleague, Dave. Dave, tell us a little bit more about Amazon DSP and where that fits in with some of the marketing decisions that our audience may be dealing with today.
Yeah, so we really talk about the power of Amazon data and what it offers us and the clients that we work with. The Amazon DSP, it uses a variety of data points and audiences to place ads off and on Amazon. And really it gives us the ability to merge the advertiser audience and the Amazon audience. So we can identify the prospective shoppers that are the best fit for the clients that we work with. So we can actually access Amazon through the DSP. We can access Amazon customer data through the use of Amazon's DSP platform.
What does that mean to access the customer data? What kind of data are we talking about?
Right. So this is where I want to get into some of the audience that we can target. So the data is built around specific products or ASINs. So we can actually create an audience that's built on people that have viewed your products in the past, or built on people who have purchased your products in the past, but maybe they've purchased within the last year, but not the last 30 days. We can set up retargeting windows and they're customizable, as well as we can set up audiences to retarget product searches, similar products, and then the competitors as well. And that's going to be a focus of what we're speaking to today.
Right.
Dave, you have a pretty deep history in the display space and DSP in general. And I started my career in advertising technology, focused on the display space as well. And all the data providers in that space, the Blue Kais of the world, were generating audiences off of kind of, secondhand off of other websites where you knew those were some signals about someone was in market for travel or buying a car or whatever it was. Nobody knows better about what the consumer is about to buy and what they're going to buy next than what Amazon knows across the entire body of billions of products, right? So that in and of itself, that when we say customer data inside Amazon, the knowledge of those buying patterns and the ability to generate audiences that are first party like that, as opposed to these third party audiences that you can target in the display world, is just a huge value prop that makes their DSP that much more powerful than the other competitors.
Yeah, and honestly, just to go a little further with that as well, off Amazon DSP, there's a lot of shared information and data, and Amazon really protects their data, and it gives us the opportunity to really target specifically individuals who are going to be a good fit for your product because of the Amazon data that we can tap into.
If I can now tap into my customer shoppers on Amazon, whether these are brands that I've run into before or they're completely new brands that are digitally native to Amazon, all of that traffic, all those consumers that are looking at my competitors' traffic, I can now micro target specific customers, specific shoppers to specific competitor ASINs. That level of detail allows me to basically go and scoop up sellers that haven't yet converted. That's pretty amazing stuff. And while Amazon won't give me the customer information, just being able to target the exact customers that have demonstrated certain search or purchase behavior across hundreds of millions of customers on Amazon. I mean, we can spend a lot of dollars on a lot of customers and go after them in ways that we've never been able to do on Amazon, or for that matter, in any other advertising platform.
Yeah, just to touch on that, the previous point as well, just with the launch products more effectively by controlling more of the traffic on and off Amazon with the DSP platform. There's different inventory supply that we can tap into from Amazon. That can be from Amazon's owned and operated sites. It can be through their APS, which is their Amazon Publisher Services, mobile, on and off Amazon, as well as the mobile app. And just to take a moment, we can use all these audiences based on the supply streams of where we're going to be showing our display ads. And we can target to those audiences for your own products. But really, if you think about what your competitors are doing out there right now, they're spending a significant amount of their budget off of Amazon with the specific intent to drive new shoppers into their product detail pages. And it's a really powerful execution for us to be able to retarget those specific ASINs based on people who have viewed those products in the past and not purchased for one reason or another. And we can also target individuals who have purchased their product, but maybe not in a specific time frame. So maybe they weren't satisfied with what they had purchased, and you want to get in front of those eyeballs.
Given that so many products aren't necessarily spontaneous purchases on Amazon, consumers have a journey from the time they first explore on Amazon to the time they actually purchase. The opportunity to interject your brand in the midst of that discussion as they're looking at your competitor brands, there is opportunity, there is time to do that. Obviously, we have to capitalize on that limited time, but every person on the call today will have a better understanding of, within their product category, just how long does it typically take for that customer journey to ultimately lead to a purchase. You can take advantage of that time gap to go in and scoop up your competitor traffic that hasn't yet converted. So that's really exciting for us. Let's if you could just finish out this particular slide and we'll move on to the next one, Dave.
Yeah, one thing before we get, before Nick touches on the attribution,
sure.
I just wanted to mention that third bullet point where all the same access to ad inventory in the DMPs as other DSP platforms. That's important to understand. I mentioned those supply sources, those inventory supply sources, but we also have access to all of the open exchanges as well, which gives us the opportunity to run any kind of an execution that any off Amazon DSP would already be running.
Fantastic. Nick, tell us a little bit about attribution issues specific to DSP.
Yeah, sure. I mean, so in general, the DSP platform that Amazon built, is a lot like what we'd seen in DSPs in the past. It's got a lot of the fundamentals. I mean, they're able obviously to track the activity on their own site, the whole path to purchase, detail page views all the way through to conversion and things like that. Those are things that we in the display space, maybe 10 even many years before, we were doing that with our own analytics on our own site, and we were tagging things ourselves. And I think one of the first in many questions I got over the years of supporting Amazon advertising in the earlier days was from clients saying, "Can I tag Amazon's website?" James pointed out earlier, obviously you cannot tag Amazon's website. They're very controlled with their data. So in a world where we don't know what happens when you toss a user into the Amazon ecosystem, we're flying blind, right? And I think what Amazon's done to kind of decouple their tracking technology from the DSP system and make it available as a standalone solution in Amazon Attribution beta, they've been calling it now for almost 3 years, is a really powerful tool to tag the media that you are driving outside of Amazon into the Amazon ecosystem in such a way that Amazon then provides you the reporting of that path to purchase for that user. So it demystifies the performance of what your Facebook spend or Google spend that's pointed at Amazon is doing for your business. So, I mean, there's so many things that we talked about on these bullet lists that we could dive into. And I think one of the pieces that I'd love to hit on as well before we jump to the next slide is it's not just about being able to have this great targeting to drive sales. Investing in this type of media also gives you a type of reporting from Amazon where they're showing you who your customers are by an audience segment basis as well. So you can take a lot of learnings about what types of people or groups or interests are interested in my products. And does that then influence what product I go build next? So there's more than just like, did it drive sales or did it lift? I mean, Amazon announced yesterday in their AdCon program that, new to brand orders increased by 20% when you invest in DSP and kind of that window that James was talking about in that path to purchase before they're actually actively querying. So there's a myriad of different value props for how you use this data, how the reporting that they provide influences, what you can build. And then as you're looking at other strategies to enrich that ecosystem, you can track that with their attribution products. And maybe James, jumping to the next slide, we can talk a little bit about Amazon's scale. And I'm sure most of you, who are working in the ecosystem are aware of a lot of the top line reports that come out of Amazon about how big their third-party marketplace is versus their vendor side. It bears reminding that more than half of Amazon's marketplace are sellers. They're generally thought of as maybe not these big sophisticated brand advertisers. They're focused on performance on the website. They want to grow their business. They have a lot of opportunity to grow in their categories. Where the vendors, the big top couple hundred advertisers that are the P&Gs of the world and L'Oreal's, et cetera, are considered the more sophisticated brand advertisers that have been buying those TV spots and kind of awareness type billboards online for years. And sellers are kind of going, I do performance, right? And when we look at the size and kind of, we brought in some eMarketer data here to show you, how big, display is, these types of ads, that are not in the search results page that you're buying keywords. These are, much more awareness focused ads that, when we look at the size of it, you can see how much for Amazon performance-based advertising is still the biggest piece of the pie, that, 11.7 billion in 2021. And so we tend to think of, I think, as growing sellers or as vendors, that display is for the big brands, that it's an awareness play that you only do, you're putting users into the top of the funnel. And then, that's only something that if you have big brand coffers, you can invest in. But the reality is that's not really true. And when we look at the entire funnel of what is made available, within Amazon, I don't know if James, the next slide would be better to discuss that,
Sure.
or even across all of your media mix. Display actually is throughout the whole funnel. I don't know if Dave, you want to touch on some of these different points throughout the funnel here.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to start at the bottom of the funnel. So typically through sponsored ad campaigns that you'd be running with your PPC executions, the sponsored products really sits down in that purchase experience to purchase area of the funnel. You start moving up the funnel a little bit with Amazon sponsored brands, and really where the DSP fits in is really customizable. So at the bottom where we show the DSP retargeting and conquesting, that's where we're talking about retargeting all of the product views or the previous purchasers, whether it's your product or your competitor's product. That's really going to be the foundation of a DSP campaign that you're going to build out for a strategy and execution. As you start to move up the funnel, really that's when you're starting to focus more on your detailed page view rate, as well as the percent of new to brand that you are bringing in. And that's where we're able to really layer in different areas of the DSP, whether it's in market. So maybe you're looking at wanting to target people who just have 2 children in the household, or lifestyle even, which would be, people who have a healthy outdoor lifestyle. And you can layer these different targeting executions on top of each other to make sure you're getting yourself the strongest return, but while still putting your efforts and your focus into the into new to brand and the detailed page view rate. And then as you go up even further, that's when we start looking at, some of the new, and these are kind of hot topics that Amazon has thrown out with like their OTT video, the over the top video through their Fire TV or the Fire tablet video. These are more awareness plays. We do have executions that enable us to retarget those users as well. But really, we can fully capture, any audience that we're looking to get, all the way from awareness down to purchase.
For those folks who may have heard of Amazon DSP to this point, especially if Amazon's been having the conversation with the brand, Amazon likes to sell DSP as a full funnel solution with a lot of inventory available at the top to create awareness. We think of DSP, our philosophy is a little bit different, where yes, you can definitely spend money at the top of the funnel, but let's start at the bottom of the funnel and work our way up, because there's enough traffic at the bottom of the funnel, people with money in hand waiting to buy something. If we can capture that right away, we're going to get a good return, but we're also going to be able to introduce our brand to folks that might not otherwise have considered our products. So in some ways, it's almost a form of awareness, but it's awareness right at the bottom to consumers who are already actively looking to buy. Just the same way sponsored products, it presents an opportunity to put your brand in front of people who are actively searching to buy. You can do the same thing with the retargeting or the conquesting efforts through DSP.
Yeah, and one thing just to note about that as well, many products have found that they've kind of hit the diminishing returns as far as the audience they're able to reach through sponsored products. That they, the more they spend, the lower their ROAS is. Well, DSP gives us an opportunity to reach those people in a different arena and really drive more traffic back into the product detail pages. So it works hand in hand with your sponsored ad executions.
And I think it bears noting as well in this slide that, retargeting isn't a new option. I mean, we've been retargeting in digital media for, years and years. What is really new and nuanced about, especially the way that Amazon is expanding placements for where display media and retargeting and conquesting strategies can come into play, is very unique in the industry. I mean, being able to put ads right on product detail pages of competitors, retargeted ads, by the way, that, are either targeting traffic to those competitors or your own customers if they're out shopping somewhere else. In the history of retargeting, you were pulling shoppers from outside of your website back to your website because they'd engaged in your product. You didn't have that necessarily that control of putting that ad right next to the product of your competitor's website, right? This was on Google's network, on CNN somewhere, following that user around, which was super valuable and, a much more higher converting ad unit than, running, top of the funnel display media. But Amazon's own ecosystem, and then also in having that ad type available within that ecosystem, is a very powerful tool that brands are really starting to take advantage of.
Well, let's talk a little bit, if you would, Nick, about some of the background of where this display option that Amazon's introduced. What did things look like in the past, and where are they headed?
Yeah, I really liked your bottom up approach comment last, James. I think, the analogy that came to my head is you wouldn't get a mast and a sail before you actually build the hull of the boat and then sail on, right? And I think what was unavailable to the seller and the brand, really as recently as the last maybe 2 years ago and before, you weren't able to get from the point where you built the hull to where you were sailing. You really did have to be kind of the larger enterprise that had the budgets to invest in more of that awareness-based marketing. The Amazon themselves had not yet rolled out the broadly available ability to target competitive ASINs or even retarget your own ASINs traffic, which is almost goes without saying as one of the most basic low funnel opportunities for display media. So in the history, what you would see happen, and this is when I was with Buybox experts and having all this conversation ad nauseum, was, you'd max out, kind of to Dave's point, your diminishing returns on sponsored ads, so sponsored products. Headline search was then what it was called. And then, you knew there was demand to grow your business. You heard about this DSP, you wanted to get some insights about your audiences. But the first thing that was available to you was like in-market and lifestyle segments. And to Dave's point, that's the sale and the mass. That's not, the next thing that allows you to bolt that mast on there, which is probably your next step if you're going to try to, go off and grow. And the gap to get to that awareness was pretty significant, and Amazon didn't have an answer for that from a media perspective. So brands were looking, how do I drive that traffic in from my other channels? I'm doing it blind, so they weren't able to really tell what was going on, and it was also difficult to measure. If you're a seller, you might be able to look more closely at your session rates and conversions and so forth, but you were flying pretty blind,
Right?
And you had to skip through that gap, and so they were looking for ways to fill that funnel.
So here we are today. We've got DSP as an option, and again, there's many different types of DSP. But tell us a little bit more about where does DSP fit into addressing that gap?
Yeah, and definitely, I think when we start to look at where Amazon has evolved, they are obviously customer obsessed and listening to not only their large brand advertisers that built their DSP business, but also looking at that 60% of their market where they know the volume is and thinking, how do I give them the stepwise steps to build the whole boat here? And they've started to develop products that allow you to, invest at a scale that makes sense for you with ad units that are catching customers closer to the bottom of that purchase funnel. Some interesting data about, Amazon display products. 58% of the brands that were surveyed in an eMarketer survey using the DSP altogether were doing more purchase-oriented strategies. And you start to see why that is when you look at, okay, obviously we know our sponsored products at, the purchase, when they're typing, I want, running shoes, let's see a running shoe ad, you convert. When you start to see some of these options available from a conquesting perspective, retargeting those custom audiences that maybe you're importing or that you're, that you're matching against your competitors. And then, the dynamic commerce ad types too, that make this more of an easy process for you to take advantage of than having to go spend tens of thousands of dollars potentially on creating custom display media. Amazon just streamlines that for you. Here's an ad. In fact, we'll set it up exactly for how the user will best convert on it. If I'm a review shopper versus a buy now shopper, I'll see a slightly different version of the ad.
So let's take a minute, Nick. And if I think back to the slide a couple of slides back where we looked at the different forms of advertising outside of Amazon, you could be a smaller brand, smaller beauty brand, for example, that's now on Amazon. You don't have huge ad budgets, but you have a big competitor, a L'Oreal, for example, that's doing big print ads, big TV ads. They're creating all this awareness. A lot of those people seeing those ads are going to Amazon to check out product. They aren't necessarily all converting, but the L'Oreals of the world have done the hard work of getting people to be aware of certain classes of products. As soon as those customers come to Amazon and they start looking at some of these products, we can go and tag them. And so we can look at a huge multi-billion-dollar brand competitors ad investment at the top of the funnel. And if they are not properly protecting with investment at the bottom of the funnel, that leaves a big opening for a much smaller brand that doesn't have hundreds of millions of dollars of ad budget available to come in. That smaller brand can come in and invest heavily in bottom of the funnel DSP, take advantage of all that additional traffic that these bigger brands have driven through awareness ads, creating traffic to Amazon. That's all available. And so it's amazing the lack of comprehensive discipline that happens when big brands do big major awareness campaigns, but don't necessarily ensure that they have a net at every stage of the sales funnel to keep capturing customers and not leave those open to smaller brands who, I'm hoping many of you on the phone today are in that position where you don't want to be spending hundreds of millions of dollars on awareness campaigns, but you do want to be in a position where you can take advantage of all these new customers who are starting to ask questions about your category of products. DSP conquesting at the bottom of the funnel. Wow, what an amazing opportunity to micro-target and take advantage of large amounts of new influx of traffic that comes by way of other companies spending money on awareness building advertising.
Yeah, I mean, if I can ladder off of that, I mean, we tend to think of the largest advertisers or just large entities in general as being aggressors and then smaller entities as being defensive. Amazon actually, this ecosystem kind of flips that notion on its head. It's sort of a classic, David and Goliath moment that if you're a large brand and you're not aware of all of these strategies, or you're not putting your defense in place in these strategies, you have a backdoor open to your most valuable customer base. And that, a lot of times that's the prime shopper. And, if they're not wearing a helmet, Goliath, that rock's going to hit you right in the head. And you're going to, all of a sudden, everybody's heard of the Anchor Electronics, or a number of other brands that are effectively household brands now that took these steps up the funnel to where now they are buying those huge awareness campaigns. But they did this. They built step by step. They started, really attacking the Belkins of the world, via these subtle attempts. And all of a sudden, here they are. And that's what Amazon can do in democratizing not only the shelf, but also these media opportunities in a world where, it's literally customer first. It's not stacked aggressively in the favor of L'Oreal. In fact, maybe more so for the seller than the big brand.
For all the challenges that brands have when they move onto Amazon, learning how things work in the Amazon sandbox, this is yet another quiver that if you learn, wait a minute, through this sandbox, I can take advantage of large amounts of traffic that somebody else generated in my category. I can go and scoop it up for myself. What an amazing opportunity for a smaller brand to far outperform a much larger brand that otherwise expects to be in a position to have significant share, but isn't properly protecting it. Let's talk about some of the misconceptions that folks who may have been exposed to Amazon DSP at some point. Let's talk about these, Dave. When we look at, I'll actually just put them all here on the screen, to take us through, some of these misconceptions and how we think about things a little bit differently.
Yeah, and some of these we've already dispelled just through our conversations already, but let's go through them one by one. Do brands need significant budgets to participate in this type of advertising? No, they do not. Self-serve DSP does not have any line item or order minimums. So you're able to keep your, we're basically, you don't need a significant budget. We can run test campaigns. We can set up the audience to make sure your dollars are able to impact that audience through our retargeting. So it's not too big of an audience for your budget. So we can reduce the audience with our targeting opportunities, and that gives you an ability to see a strong return. But no, that you do not need a significant budget at all. The second one, does DSP have limited inventory or inventory only on Amazon platforms? We did talk to that a little earlier. We can run into the open exchanges, and our standard inventory supply from Amazon is both Amazon O&O as well as off Amazon inventory. Is DSP only for brands that don't already have an off Amazon DSP strategy? No. The Amazon DSP is really a standalone, and that's because of their data, the power of their data, how they protect their data. Yep. So there's no other way to tap into the Amazon shoppers and their behaviors on Amazon unless you're using Amazon DSP. We can conversely do everything that off Amazon DSPs do, but they do not have the opportunity to come in and do what the Amazon DSP does. Is Amazon DSP only for top of funnel or brand awareness? No, as a matter of fact, as we were discussing with the funnels on those slides, we really want to build a foundation that's based on a return of ad spend and then move up the funnel from there. A really mature DSP campaign that's built out correctly, you will have mid-funnel executions that are driving new to brand, driving new customers to the product detail pages, and then we would have executions that would retarget those viewers that have not purchased to drive them back to the detail pages and turn them into purchasers. And then the next step is really retargeting those purchasers, but maybe they haven't purchased within a certain window. So you want to retarget them and make them multiple purchasers. And then if you have a subscribe and save initiative, That would be through custom creative. We would actually push that. That would be the end of the path. You get them signed up for subscribe and save, so they're long-term customers.
And then finally, this last question about, I mean, do you need to sell on Amazon? One of the things that I find fascinating about Amazon DSP, you don't even have to be a physical product provider. You could be selling a service. You could be selling something that isn't sold on Amazon, or even if you are selling a physical product, you can direct DSP campaigns not back to Amazon, but you can direct them back to your own website. So if you've got a Shopify site, for example, and you want to test, can I get people who haven't purchased on Amazon but have at least looked around? Can I get them potentially to come and look at my products over on my own website? That's certainly a possibility. You'll have to test to see what the conversion rates are driving them to a non-Amazon site versus your own site. But that's an option where it's not just let's take customers and send them back to Amazon. We can actually try other destinations.
Yeah, and another point is if you do have a product that is listed on Amazon, but for some reason you're not allowed to advertise that product on Amazon, you haven't been approved to advertise, we can still run the advertising through the DSP to drive those product page views.
Great. So let's talk about more aspects of self-service, and this term self-serve. We may need to clarify what does self-serve actually mean. To tell us a little bit more about this, Dave and Nick.
Yeah, so Amazon managed campaigns where you're running through Amazon directly with an account executive. They typically have a $35,000 per month minimum, as well as a $15,000 per line item per month minimum as well. With Selfserve, we have much more flexibility. We're able to, run at lower minimums at $5K per month. And on those line item minimums, we really have no minimum that we need to work with. We obviously want to make sure there's enough to have it be functional, but we don't have any line item minimums. And that honestly, it gives us the ability to really target users on a very granular level. So I'm going to take a minute right now or maybe it's going to be a few minutes, but to go into kind of a standard build out that we might have for a new client, where we talk about, setting up with those foundational line items where, if you were running through the Amazon managed DSP, you might be able to run 2, maybe 3 line items. We could run one line item retargeting the people, the viewers, the product viewers, one for past purchasers, and a number of different ones that are focused on those competitor executions. We can retarget people who have viewed your competitors' products again. We can do the purchasers as well. And we can also build in layering on top of those. So if you were trying to reach a competitor, and you wanted to make sure that they fit within the demographics that you're looking to reach, we can actually retarget people who have viewed your competitor's product, but they need to be within a certain age range, or they need to be in the market to purchase a similar product to yours as well. So we can really build the layering of those audiences to make sure that we're focused on the right customer.
Sounds like you could also be in a situation, Dave, where the amount of time it takes for a consumer on Amazon to convert may be different from what you're experiencing elsewhere. So you could test out different time ranges and see on Amazon, does a customer convert in, say, 15 days, where I'm used to it being 30 days? You could actually test out different amounts of time and check that out, so you can understand just how relevant the number of days since first visit is actually going to be critical to ultimately driving to a sale.
Right, and there's so many different line item opportunities to build out, and then we're able to optimize based on those specific line items. So we can do it by those recency windows, as you mentioned. We can do it by the different audiences, as well as by the different supply, the inventory supply that we spoke to earlier. It really just gives us an opportunity to optimize on a very granular level. And it makes it more where our bidding is based on actual supply and demand on what you are trying to advertise and where the advertisements are going to be seen. It's also important to call out that we have more flexibility because of our ability to run multiple line items to target specific ASINs instead of being forced into clumping a group of ASINs together to retarget. So it becomes much more focused in that area as well.
Can you talk for a minute about, let's say I'm either a brand new seller with no experience on Amazon, or I'm a brand that's launching a new product on Amazon. Talk to me about how I would leverage DSP to drive relevant traffic quickly to my new listings.
Yeah, so both of those would use an execution where you are most definitely retargeting your competitors, because that's the easiest, lowest funnel to be able to bring in new to brand, to your brand on that new product launch. And then you build in the in-market and lifestyle as well to be able to drive those new to brand into your product detail pages. If you already have a brand established and you're doing a new product release, another great execution is using the power of your current products. So if you were selling bikes and you sell adult bikes, but you wanted to do a product launch for children's bikes, you can actually build an audience that's based on people who have purchased your adult bikes in the past, and run a campaign that's targeting them, but also layering in people who are married or have children in their household. So they're very comfortable with your brand already, but when a new product releases and they fit the new profile, they're going to be really engaged and more likely to purchase.
When I compare what you just described versus what many brands new to Amazon will do, where they'll try to outbid everybody on sponsored products to try to get some initial traffic, that sponsored product ad is nowhere near as targeted as what you can do with DSP. Assuming you've got adequate budget to be able to support a DSP campaign effort, being able to micro target, sounds like it's much more effective in DSP in these types of conditions than just spending money on keyword bidding within sponsored products.
Yeah, and initially when orders and line items are built out, when they first start running, there's Amazon machine learnings that initially kick off to optimize the campaign, and then there's manual optimizations that continue after that. But having everything broken out, by line item gives us the opportunity to treat each one independent of the other and deliver the best results. It changes our bidding strategy based on what products are running. And the great thing about the flexibility that we have within each month is we can actually move budget instantly from any execution that might not be reaching our set goals into the executions that are. So it's just another opportunity for us to really make sure that the clients that we're working with get the best return on their ad spend.
Fantastic.
And then just one more thing, really, just about the no line item minimums. We spoke briefly earlier about the video executions, the new hot products that Amazon's putting out all the time with the OTT Fire TV and the Fire tablet. With no line item minimums, we're actually able to run testing on some of those upper funnel executions, at a really low budget, and see how they affect the rest of the campaigns that we're running. And if we see those being, very effective, then we can start adding more to it instead of being forced to commit a significant amount upfront and just hoping that it does well.
Can you spend a minute, Dave, and talk about, for brands that are already actively spending money outside of Amazon, how would you leverage DSP to protect customers all the way through the journey they might have on Amazon?
If they're spending a significant amount off Amazon, how would we protect them?
Yes.
Yeah. So really the most important thing that you're going to want to do is really protect your purchasers. You're kind of working reverse engineering when I talked about bringing a new to brand first, and then the product views, recapturing them, and then the purchasers, and that you move to your SNS. You really want to protect your previous purchasers first. So you want to make sure you're in front of them and giving them every opportunity to come back and purchase from you again, so they don't have an opportunity. So that's a great way to protect your brand. And then you do want to make sure that people that are viewing your product, and as they don't, maybe they get distracted by their children or anything along those lines. Maybe they just didn't have a chance to purchase. You don't want them to have an opportunity to see an ad that one of your competitors are putting out there for you. So you want to make sure that you're running the product view, retargeting campaign as well.
Okay, great. So at this point, I want to open it up to anyone. If you've got questions, please go to the Q&A tab and please ask questions for Nick or for Dave to answer. We'll open up at this point, please. While we wait for questions to come in there, Nick, can you talk a little bit about some of the unexpected ways, the clever ways that you've seen people leverage Amazon DSP to help drive their overall advertising strategy?
Sure. I mean, I think, one of the things I brought up earlier, we could dive a little deeper into is really understanding, who your audiences are on Amazon. I think that's, if you're not a big sophisticated marketing team inside a large brand who's tasked with, modeling the customer to the nth degree, and that's a focus for you. You're probably thinking more about, performance-oriented goals and so forth, but it is something that is very valuable, especially if you are a younger brand. You probably are leveraging technologies out there to think, okay, what's the next product going to be? You have your own champion and challenger processes going with your own R&D. Maybe you have a hero product that's going to last forever and it's the most defensible thing in the world. Great. You have maybe some different goals, but most, I think, folks developing brands have to kind of go through that cyclical process. So DSP investment, even beyond the retargeting and some of the strategies that Dave's talking about in building, the building blocks up, even doing some tests to look more broadly across, certain segments of Amazon, to then let them know who your audiences are, that are engaging with your products and converting with your products. You might be surprised. I mean, I don't know that it created anything for the specific workout brand that I was working on within Buybox experts, but Harry Potter fans were like the third biggest audience for a number of their products. Now, you may not go create a Harry Potter version of your workout bench, but there are some insights to understand. I think when you look at those, what you'll get from that. One great example that I heard a case about that I think it bears thinking about is, you may have what as who your buyer is. You look at energy drinks, for example. When you start looking at audience reports and you realize, wow, I'm getting a huge audience from this workout site, this like home gym workout sector. But I do energy drinks and I sell them as, I never really sell them to the gym kind of, CrossFit user. And with that concept, like, what's the after workout drink? Like, when you started seeing that audience come in, is that just a different label or a different product detail page that you need to put up, that keyword, right, you stuff a few more times that says, hey, after your workout at the CrossFit gym, drink our energy drink, and boom, through the roof, there goes, a whole segment that you hadn't been going after. And that's performance, right? So you learned that from display insights, and then you went and you drove a whole new section of insight within your broader category, because you were just missing a whole section of whom to address.
Dave, anything you've seen that's clever? Some of the DSP companies we've worked with, unusual ways that they've leveraged these different parts of the funnel to promote DSP.
Yeah, one thing I was going to mention as well, and this it just provides more flexibility and more optimization tactics as well. But so the standard creative that we showed in the slide earlier is your standard Amazon dynamic e-commerce creative, but we can actually do custom creative that actually will include the badges still, but you have much more flexibility with using a lifestyle image instead of just a product image. And your messaging within those custom creatives can be much more specific to what you're trying to capture. So specifically with the client that is launching a new product, they were doing a new product release, and it had nothing to do with their original products. I mean, it was hygiene versus nutritional bar. I mean, there was no correlation. So but what they did is they created a custom creative, and they said, this is, you're comfortable, you've purchased our brand and their messaging. This is brought to you by our company, and it's a new product that we think you would be interested in. And we targeted audiences that would be a good fit for that nutritional bar. And we saw great performance. And we think it was specifically because they were very comfortable with purchasing from that brand in the past.
Very good. Very good. Any other questions from the audience that we can address at this point? Please feel free to submit through the Q&A button. Nick, one other question for you. This is a fairly new platform that's being democratized by Amazon. How long do you think it's going to take for Amazon to be, for demand for DSP to be such that basically everybody's got access to it, and it's no longer the next big thing? It's more just standard operating procedure for people advertising on Amazon.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think it's new thing, but it's also one of the original things that built, Amazon's advertising business. Originally started as just a way to manage the yield across, a ton of traffic they were getting on their own property, the new properties they'd purchased like IMDb and diapers.com. They just wanted to sell ad space there because that was sort of the dominant paradigm back in 2008 when they launched the advertising business. Now, as you think about and you see kind of the trends of what we're talking with you about of Amazon trying to democratize this service, there's a lot of work at a big old organization like this to take, a model that used to be, an ad agency based, IO based, so insertion orders about big ad campaigns that get run behind the scenes, right, all the way over to what Amazon broadly as a strategy that Jeff Bezos talks about of hands off the wheel, right? Platform it out, and let it scale. And, you don't have to have this 1-to-1 or even 2-to-1 human to brand relationship. If Amazon can become a platform and then rent that platform, they did it in FBA. They're doing it with Amazon Web Services. Advertising is going to be no different, right? It'll be another tool set within the seller or vendor ecosystem. And it's going to take them, as we've seen, it's been 3 years since they've been talking about this. It's going to take another 3 years to where we see those, that all of the feature set within DSP bleeding its way into the full advertising console that we as sellers or even, a lot of vendors now are getting that exact same experience. And then through that time, they're going to continue to innovate. So it's not too far away to where you as a seller start using their video creation tools to do sponsored brands video. Then all of a sudden, maybe your ads are going to start running on OTT. Like, when did you think you were going to be buying a TV ad, right? Like, that's something that he does. Now, holy smokes, we're democratized. I might get my product serving up on Monday Night Football. Like, that's unreal if if the user's on a Fire TV. Or maybe I guess it would be Thursday Night Football for Amazon. But that's some of the big kind of, and internally, they have a bunch of politics between the team that built their display agency in-house and the product teams that ultimately need to own the sponsored products for sellers within the advertising org. So lots of moving parts. It's a big organization, and it takes a lot of time to shift that juggernaut even a few meters one direction or the other.
Dick and Dave, I want to thank you both for joining us today. For everyone listening, we will be sharing a copy of the recording a little bit later today that will include the slides. I thank you all for listening, and have yourself a good rest of the day. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks.